There is always more gatekeeping to be done. I shall stop pretending that I'm only doing one more video because it seems another point of interest pops up whenever I do. So let's simply make this into an infrequent series, shall we? And to celebrate, look! Fancy merchandise, both to clothe your pasty torso and to remind you of your duty and the cost of not gatekeeping. Now, the shilling out of the way, today we are going to touch back on and elaborate on a method of gatekeeping. We have already talked about how to identify the outsider and refuting their arguments by simply saying, no, your outside politics has no place in our science fiction or fantasy hobby, before the outsider is allowed to, as Popper puts it, to reach for the fist or pistol and reject the argument. And whilst this should be ideally the first line of defense, and if executed well, could be the absolute and only line, allowing those with genuine interest to pass through unmolested, many a hobby is far beyond that point. And so we come to the necessity of not only pointing to the outsider's clear and obvious flaws for all to see, and make no mistake, that is vitally important, because in many cases what we see as obvious nonsense, as obvious hypocrisy, and dangerous to the very foundation of our society, a lot of people simply don't think about it until it is actively pointed out to them. But furthermore, we are also going to talk about how to use the outsider's weapons against them. In this case specifically, we will be using their hypocrisy to turn the tables. So let me begin by presenting to you a few examples of how the outsider has quite literally weaponized hypocrisy. And the first and foremost way in which they have achieved this is by the telling of, quote, the big lie. The falsehood so blatant yet espoused at such volume and vehemency that it simply rolls over most people like a wave, submerging and overwhelming them to the point where they simply just accept it. Kind of like showing a layman the equations needed to fire a rocket into space. Or when a doctor hands you a prescription with the words "Up flickle flackle fluxelflagen with Dixo denarium" on it. You don't question that. You simply assume that the man with the fancy figures and the long complicated words knows what he's talking about. Most of us neither have the education nor the interest or the time to learn all of the details, so we take their words for it in good faith. And there lies the trap. Now, of course, theoretically, a doctor or a rocket scientist could be lying to you, but very rarely will they have anything to gain from doing so, and so in turn very rarely will they. However, on the other hand, someone who has a vested interest in gaining power and influence within a multi-billion-dollar industry, which many of our hobbies have now turned into, or in gaining political power and influence in modern-day democracies, they have every reason to lie to you. As a quick and easy demonstration to this, let me present you with a financial incentive. This is the ProPublica listing for feminist frequency, also known as Anita Sarkeesian's private piggy bank. In 2014, she compensated herself $18,000. In 2015, she gave herself $59,000. Then another $50K in 2016, and $70,000 in 2017, and a measly $47,000 in 2018, through donations alone. It should come as a very small surprise to anyone that yes, this woman has a thoroughly vested interest in seeing sexism in video games continue to be a problem, because it is an awfully profitable endeavor. And it has proven very successful as well, because good faith was extended universally, in no small part due to the fact that we were all used to being essential social outcasts. Those of us who loved video games, who loved science fiction, fantasy, anime, manga, etc. And so when these things became popular and mainstream, our first reaction was one of joy. Look at all of these new people. We're cool now, and we get to share our passion for the thing we love with tens of thousands of new people. And so when they came in, whinging about sexism, about misogyny, about all manners of nonsense, confused though we were, we gave them the benefit of the doubt. We presumed them to act in good faith. And that is how we ended up here. And now let me show you a practical application of weaponized hypocrisy. AP journalist fired after right-wing campaign of Palestinian activism. Last week, in a chilling act of political censorship, the Associated Press fired news staffer Emily Wilder. Says the world's socialist website, the International Committee of the Fourth International. Literal worldwide revolution now communists are criticizing something as a chilling act of political censorship. The political ideology that has killed more people throughout the world than any other is very worried about the firing of an AP journalist. I really don't think I need to say anything more than that. But let me bring you a more direct example around the same case. Margaret Sullivan here is also bemoaning the firing. Is it okay to tweet about racial justice, press rights? Can an ill-considered tweet be a disciplinary offense? Could it actually get you fired? And shouldn't journalists be able to say what they think? She says in this article posted on May the 27th. Whereas in an article on May the 5th, she says Facebook's oversight board whiffed, Trump deserves permanent exile. Because of course, this is the clincher right here. The ability to say that your opposition, no matter how controversial or no matter how disliked, can and should be exiled. Whereas those who side with you can, in the very self-same breath, be defended for almost any wrongdoing. It is okay when we do it. The kind of absurd hypocrisy that even a child can spot, yet it is used unceasingly by the outsiders. They will claim all of the freedoms, all of the benefits, and demand all of the goodwill, whilst refusing to offer even the slightest shred of it to others. Another recent and hilarious example of this very thing comes from an ex-CNN journalist. Ex as in, he was fired over the tweet saying, "The world today needs a Hitler," in reference to the Israel-Palestine conflict. Oh boy. And then afterwards, he tweets, "Glad a single tweet contributed to the hashtag Palestine cause and brought it to the limelight, with me losing my job and the West's claim of freedom of expression and human rights." The man who tweets, "The world needs another Hitler," is now appealing to the West's rights of freedom of expression. It is so thoroughly shameless, you almost have to admire it. But the tactic is starting to lose its effect. What happened to the AP journalist and the CNN journalist is beginning to happen more and more often. Consequences are starting to happen to even the protected classes, those who for the longest time have been able to say and do anything they wanted, things that anyone else would have been yeetus deletest thrice over for. And this is because the normal people are beginning to wake up to this kind of hypocrisy. They are beginning to realize that, hold on, this isn't right. In fact, this is genuinely disgusting. And there is a way for us to use their tools against them. It is a very simple way as well. It's something that anyone could do. It's something that you could do right now. And it's in fact something that somebody already did and posted a comment about on the previous gatekeeping video. It gives us an excellent example of how this works. Someone posted my video in a Facebook group dedicated to 40k. The reaction of the outsider group was immediate. Ban it, ban it, ban it, remove it. And a lot of other people, of course, then stepped in and said, hold on, you know that you are proving him right by saying that. By immediately calling for the rejection of the argument, you are proving yourself to be exactly the outsiders he warned against. And their only counter-argument to that? Oh well, it's different when we do it. It's okay, you might say, when we do it. Familiar, isn't it? And I guarantee you as well, if you pushed them on this point, they would very quickly get defensive. They would very quickly get angry. They would very quickly start calling you and everyone else on the other side names. Because that is the natural human reaction to having your brain go, hold on, they're right. I am calling for gatekeeping whilst disavowing gatekeeping. I can't square this circle, and so I'm simply just going to get angry. And you might think this doesn't seem very useful, very productive, annoying a handful of little censorious shits on the internet. What will that ever achieve? Everything. I'm not joking. Genuinely, this is of paramount importance. If you do want to see a change in your hobby, in your favorite setting, you need to make the argument. You need to start the argument. Whether it be via doing something more blatant, like posting one of my videos on the subject, or simply bringing it up in conversation, using the arguments and the ideas that you might get from here or countless other YouTubers who are fighting against this crushing, corrupting weight on our hobbies. And I'll tell you precisely why it's so important as well. First and foremost, when you are presenting something in this way, like pointing to my video, the consequences of not gatekeeping, and then having people immediately say, ban, ban, gatekeep, gatekeep, everyone else looking at that conversation will see the outsiders for exactly what they are. They won't even need to watch the video to recognize the fact that they have already rejected the argument on the face of it. Which will make a lot of people start thinking. And that's the important part. Again, the good faith part was our weakness. A lot of people simply accepted, oh, gatekeeping bad because I was told so. And yet now they see, hold on, the people who told us gatekeeping is bad are now arguing for gatekeeping. What else have they been lying to us about? The moment people start thinking about these things, they start seeing the flaws. They start going through the journey that most of us have already gone through. To reuse the doctor example, a trained medical physician will recognize the box of apflickelflackelfluxelflagen with dixodronarim as simple cough medicine. He'll know what it does, he'll know why it does that thing. But to a normal person, once more, it's complete and utter nonsense. It is in fact so complete and utter nonsense you can't even recognize it as nonsense. A bunch of pseudo-intellectuals invading your hobby and stating that there is institutional racism everywhere is the exact same thing. The layman will react to that with shock horror. What? Institutional racism? I don't really know what that means, but racism is bad, right? That's horrible. How do we deal with it? Well, comrade, by trying socialism again. I hope you're nice and fat, because you're gonna need that energy storage. But if then another person steps in and says, hold on, institutional racism. So you are saying the organization, be it the government, the hobby, the company, or whatever, is inherently racist. That's weird and makes no sense. We appear to have outlawed racism, in fact, in most Western countries. It appears to be illegal. How can an institutionally racist state have outlawed racism? And suddenly, the normie will start thinking to himself, yeah, that is weird. Though, bearing in mind, whilst this is something that needs to be done and has to be one of the first things that is done, namely opening the argument in the public space to begin with so as to make people think, do not expect this to be a quick process. In fact, most normies will probably initially react with distaste, because after a decade of this, a lot of people are so thoroughly indoctrinated and so thoroughly acceptive of the nonsense that at first their brains will also enter into that defensive reaction of going, hold on, am I a hypocrite? No, I can't be. I can't be. You mean that hiring people based on race is racist and bad, but I was told it wasn't? I can't be a racist. I'm an anti-racist. And once more, we return to a very circular hole and a very square peg. A lot of people are going to have to work their way through the various stages of denial before they can eventually come around to realizing, this was really weird all along. And some, of course, will never be convinced. Yet, I do firmly believe that the majority can, and in fact, really already are. They just need an opportunity to see it. And the beauty of something like the question of gatekeeping is if you post a video of gatekeeping or make an argument about gatekeeping and a moderator then goes, no, we're gonna have to ban this, all you then need to say is, so you're going to prove me right, are you? No swifter way to win an argument, is there? If they ban it, you're correct, and you have demonstrated that fact to yourself, to the moderator, and everyone who saw it. And if they hesitate, with the human nature of occasionally being contrarian, flaring up and going, hold on, I would be proving him right. Well, I can't do that. Now I'm gonna get angry and defensive. You've bought yourself more time to make the argument, to convince more people. And when, in their anger and refusal to see what is happening, they ban it anyways, you'll have convinced even more people. And even if you don't want to be quite so blatant about it as to initiate via starting the argument or posting a video, and I fully understand because, well, the simple fact is we are dealing with the dictators here. We are dealing with the people who will and want to censor to maintain their own narrative. That is a frightening force to take on, and no doubt about it. But doing simple things like pointing out the hypocrisy, even just something small like that, pointing it out in an article to a group of people, casually, pointing it out in the latest news from the hobby and so on, is valuable. It might seem pointless, it might seem futile and fruitless considering it's been happening now for a decade, and the hypocrisy just keeps getting worse. We are seeing the turn. It is slow, but it is inexorable, and it will swing. The more we can help it along, the better. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.